meeting of the Essex County Board of Chosen Freeholders is hereby called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder Brown.
Here.
Freeholder Johnson, absent. Freeholder Luciano, absent. Freeholder Mercado.
Here.
Freeholder Kamara.
Here.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent. Freeholder Sebald.
Here.
Freeholder President Gill.
Here. Going to please stand for our salute to the flag and ask Freeholder Graham to lead us in the salute. Ask that we please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have before me certification from the clerk that this meeting is in compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act. Madam Clerk, are there any transcripts to be approved?
Mr. President, there are none.
Madam Clerk, are there any topics of discussion?
Mr. President, there are none.
Okay, let's go to the public comment session. Tonight's meeting is a combined conference board meeting, and we will vote on every item on the agenda. So if there's any member of the public who would like to comment on any issue, whether or not it's on the agenda, you'll have the opportunity to speak. Please come to the microphone, state your name and affiliation for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Point of personal privilege, Madam Clerk, before we start public comment, could you please update the board and the general public on where we are in the process regarding the ordinance for the Civilian Task Review Board?
Yes, Mr. President. As you well know, that we had introduced this ordinance, and as required by statute, there is time allowed, a minimum of 10 days for public comment and feedback. Also, we had the opportunity, the board, to listen to public comment and get feedback during the meeting when this was introduced. Subsequently, we've been getting additional communications for comments and positions and feedback that the President and the board felt that it was worthy to understand and explore. So today, when this ordinance is presented for second and public comment will be entertained, listened to, feedback will be taken, and then the President will adjourn this to the meeting for a vote on November, I believe it's the 13th, where the meeting will be held in Maplewood. Council, is there anything else you would like to add to that?
Not at this time, Madam Clerk.
Okay, so just I think, Counselor, just to make sure that everyone's clear, because we did have quite a bit of outreach from constituents on this ordinance. We will be taking, through normal course of business, we will be taking public comment tonight on the ordinance. We will close that public comment period when it's done, and then we will determine from there whether, when and where we will be taking final passage vote. The goal, again, is since we had quite a few people who came to the last meeting, we received hundreds upon hundreds of emails on this ordinance that we're trying to process through our office to digest and make sure that we get back to everyone who has taken the time, to reach out, as well as other constituency groups who have, since the introduction, who have reached out to the ordinance, who have, we believe, substantive contributions to make it even more effective. So I'm trying to navigate our process here in terms of passing this ordinance, and at the same time, there's been many, many months of time put in this already, but also to make sure that we give as much possible time to get this in the best possible form that we can.
That's correct. So we can go through public comment and then take it from there, and if the will of the board is to adjourn the vote to a subsequent meeting, then we can take that vote at the motion to adjourn at that time.
Okay, so with that, we are still on open public comment. Again, tonight's meeting is a combined conference board meeting. We'll vote on every item on the agenda. So if there's any member of the public who would like to comment on any issue, whether it's on the agenda or not, you'll have the opportunity to speak. Please come to the microphone and state your name and affiliation for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, nice to see you all again. My name is Holly Gauthier. I'm co-chair of the Soma Action Voting Rights Committee. And no one would ever accuse me ever of being a comedian, but I do want to call to your attention tonight a program that was on Sunday night on HBO, John Oliver Last Week Tonight. And for your convenience, I have brought some links so that you can watch it on HBO. The reason that I brought this is because he spends 20 minutes talking about voting machines and voting systems in America. One of the pieces that he brought up was about basically the kinds of machines that we use here in New Jersey and have been discredited, that some of you have seen when Andrew Appel, Professor Appel, was here last January, and how hackable they are, and the kind that were used in Georgia, and it requires software update, and Georgia hadn't updated theirs since 2007, even though there'd been a link and a breach and something should have happened. So that was good, and again, the reason I encourage you to watch it is I'm certainly not going to make you laugh deliberately by anything that I say, but John Oliver will make you laugh and make you wring your hands in despair perhaps a bit as well. One of the things that was particularly brought up was how voting machines, and I would say these would go for any kind of voting machine, including the ones that have been recently purchased in Union County. These all have to be delivered early. In other words, at several days before the election. The question comes, how well looked after are they? Can they be accessed by anybody else? My co-chair, David Harris, who couldn't be here tonight, said that his church in Maplewood is a voting place. The voting machines were delivered there, I guess Friday perhaps. There was a meeting there in his church that he attended on Monday, and the machines were there in plain sight, easily accessible by a ne'er-do-well, and who knows exactly. Interestingly, it was also brought up about in this report here about Cumberland County, which we have spoken about before, where there were 30-some votes. We knew the vote. People who were running for office knew that they had won. They were able to get affidavits and get the election overturned. This leads to the fact
30 seconds.
That the really only useful and secure, reliable, and I would say cost-effective voting system is a hand-marked, can't be hacked, paper ballot with optical scanners. I encourage the board to make sure that Essex County takes the lead in the nation, so that the next time John Oliver makes a report on voting systems, he has the opportunity to report that Essex County bucked the trend in New Jersey. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Valerie Palma DeLuisi. I am a taxpayer in Essex County, and I am also an attorney along with my partner Nicholas Palma. We represent PBA Local 382, Essex County Corrections Officers. The City of Newark attempted to establish a civilian complaint review board to investigate complaints made by civilians against Newark Police Department. The Newark Review Board was far less onerous than the task force that is being created in the proposed Essex County ordinance. In Newark, civilian complaints made independently by those civilians will be investigated by the review board. In Essex, the task force members will be seeking out inmates to file complaints. In Newark, the review board was created as a result of a lawsuit against the city by the Department of Justice based on a pattern and practice of abuse by Newark police officers. No such finding has ever been made against Essex County law enforcement. The jail does not have an abuse problem at the hands of the officers or the superior officers. In Newark, there was a finding by the Department of Justice that the Internal Affairs Division was part of the problem, that they covered up civilian complaints. No such finding or even investigation into the Essex County Correctional Facility, IA, has ever been made because everyone is in agreement that they're beyond reproach. They do their job. They're not afraid to discipline. They investigate as needed. In Newark, the ordinance gave officers 2 days advance notice of a requested interview with the task force, and they have the right to have an attorney appear with them at that interview, and they're Mirandized before the interview. None of those protections exist in the Essex ordinance. Despite all of these extra protections given to officers in Newark, a Superior Court judge still found the Newark ordinance unconstitutional and granted an injunction. Now, this is before the New Jersey Supreme Court, and they have to decide whether a civilian review board violates an officer's constitutional rights and or civil service rights. At this point, the Essex ordinance, as it is written, is illegal and cannot be passed. We are asking you to wait until the Supreme Court issues a ruling, and then we will sit together and come up with a plan in accordance with the Supreme Court parameters on the legality
30
of
seconds.
these task forces. We are simply asking you to let the Supreme Court do its job, and then we can sit together and do ours. Thank you.
My name is Nicholas Palma. I've been a
Mr. Palmer, you can squeeze right underneath the mic handle and adjust it.
Oh, okay, thank you. My name is Nicholas Palma. I'm a lifelong resident of Essex County and proud to do so. I'm also, with my partner, more importantly my daughter, the attorneys for PBA Local 382, 550 brave men and women who man the jail. We cannot lose sight of the fact that unlike all civilian review boards that deal with patrol departments, Newark, Irvington, Clifton, whatever, that deal with civilians going to the board to make a complaint, here the inmates of the Essex County Jail, since there's been bail reform, are almost exclusively there after a hearing from a Superior Court judge has found them too violent and dangerous to be out in public while they're awaiting their trial. Also, there's those who have been convicted or pled guilty or are waiting for the state prison system to pick them up. It's a whole different parameter than you have with the patrol division. This ordinance as written speaks constantly of rights of the inmates, but nothing about the security and safety of the officers. This task force, on 1 hour's most notice, can go to any part of the jail at any time and speak to any person. Where's the rights of my officers to decline to speak to them? This ordinance speaks of this task force having a say in the hiring, retention, and termination and discipline of these officers. They have civil service rights. They tested long and hard to pass this exam, went to a police academy. They have civil service rights to face their accuser. This ordinance has confidential complaints via confidential communication. Correspondence between inmates and the outside, if it's pertaining to this task force, cannot be read. This is a correctional facility. The danger to the inmates to each other and to these officers cannot be overstated with correspondence going back and forth that nobody could see what's in there. That just boggles the mind that is in there. Now, I'm not impugning the integrity or desire to make a better facility of those who drafted this. What I'm saying is safeguards have to be put in there for the rights of the officers. One officer in a pod with 64 criminals, and that officer is unarmed. That officer cannot be distracted by a task force waltzing into the pod and deciding to speak to these prisoners
30 seconds.
Or speak to the officer who's now distracting his attention. The analogy I will give is this. Our founding fathers for the Revolution gave us a constitution, but it did not have any safeguards for private individuals. Patrick Henry demanded a Bill of Rights for individuals, and that's what we received. What I am asking for is the same thing here. Don't rush. Give us an opportunity to put the legal protections that the Police Training Commission, Attorney General already gives to our officers. Thank you.
Good evening, Freeholders. My name is Jessica Brader, and I'm a resident of Bloomfield. I'm a member of B'nai Keshet in Montclair, and I'm here this evening representing Faith in Essex and the Montclair Sanctuary Alliance. I'm here because I love my Essex County neighbors, and by those neighbors, I include those who are detained and incarcerated at Essex County Correctional Facility. And I feel that it's my responsibility as a person of faith to stand up for those who are the most vulnerable among us. I really appreciate the fact that all of you have participated in the process of considering and drafting this ordinance. And I also appreciate that you are taking the time to take into consideration the many public comments you are receiving regarding the ordinance. I know you will have received the letter that I sent you that was co-signed by 15 Essex County and statewide advocacy organizations making some recommendations about how to improve the ordinance to make it stronger to protect those people that are, again, very vulnerable members of our community. I have a question for the record this evening for Mr. Johnson, who is not here, but I'm going to ask my question anyway. Last time I was here, I asked for 3 dates and times when he was available to meet with Faith in Essex clergy. He wrote back that he wouldn't be able to meet until after the holidays. So my question for the record this evening is, what are 3 dates and times after the holidays when Mr. Johnson would be available to meet with Faith in Essex clergy? I also want to mention to you that there's a petition online that's basically a version of the letter that you received from the 15 advocacy groups. The last time I checked, it had 550 signatures. I don't want to close it out yet because every time I check, the numbers of signatures are increasing. I want to let you know, so the county executive does get an email every time someone signs the petition, but I didn't have it sent to you guys every time that somebody signs the petition. But once we give it a little bit more time to let everybody who wants to sign on, I will send a PDF of it to all of you. But in case you'd like to see who signed and how many signatures we have, I will later this evening or tomorrow send a copy of the PDF to you. So I just want to thank you again for taking your responsibility to protect every Essex County resident seriously.
30 seconds.
And I want to really urge you to take the next week before, or however long passes before you vote on this ordinance, to really consider making this the strongest possible ordinance that you could pass. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Reverend Anya Samler-Michael, and I serve our congregation in Montclair, Unitarian Universalist. And I'm also a citizen of Essex County and glad to be speaking to all of you. I add my gratitude for the work you've been doing on the Civilian Oversight Task Force. It matters how we treat those entrusted to us, those especially who have very few rights and who are in a challenging situation. It matters because we are the only witnesses that they have. And they've been brought here, those who are here as detained or incarcerated in Essex County. I have a personal, my heart is hurting tonight because I know someone who is currently at the correctional facility, Luis de Leon, who is a member of our congregation and who for years and years and years worked with the ministers in our congregation to serve food to the homeless, has now been picked up by ICE and is being detained at that correctional facility. And I had the audacious desire to visit Luis de Leon, and I looked at the website, and the website said that clergy can visit at any point. And then I read a little bit further, and it said that clergy can visit, but only if they get approval from the chaplain's office. And I called every single possible number that I can find and pressed every button on the phone that I could press, and I couldn't get connected to the chaplain's office, which to me felt like an incredible block, that there was no way for me to get in touch with the group that I needed to get in touch with to be able to visit a member of our congregation who's at this facility. So when we talk about making sure that the nomination process is transparent, that stakeholders and advocacy groups must be allowed to nominate members of the task force, that civilian means that there will be community input. We're talking about transparency, and transparency is exactly what's not there in so many ways at this facility. So by creating a space for transparency, you're righting some of the wrongs that are there. And I want to recommend that that transparency is added to this task force in every way possible, including that the county should be required to make all task force reports public. Because if I can't get in to see a member of my congregation and I'm hitting blockade after blockade, we need to make sure that there's transparency in some way, shape, or form so we understand what's happening to those entrusted to us.
30
those that
seconds.
we need to be responsible to.
Thank you.
Mr. President, one more. I'm sorry, could the last speaker, would you be able to provide your contact information to one of our staff members? Please.
Thank you, Fielder for Mayor. So I actually just asked my personal aide to also come out because I want this to be followed up on right away. So you guys can connect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Greenstein. I'm rabbi of Congregation Shomrei Emunah in Montclair, where I live. I want to, first of all, express support for all of the constructive, numerous comments that were given at the last session and that have continued to be offered this evening for an oversight task force that will be transparent, that will be open, that will be communicative, and that will be fair. I'm heartened that you've acknowledged the constructive nature of so many of those comments and suggestions. I'm a little disappointed that the ordinance just sits there as it has already been drafted. It's not clear to me, maybe you can clarify this, whether voting against the ordinance as it stands because it's inadequate then just kills the ordinance. Why hasn't the ordinance been rewritten in the light of all of the really wonderful suggestions that have been made so far? This coming Sabbath, we will be reading in our synagogue and synagogues all over the world the story of the evil cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And there are all kinds of theories about what was so bad about those cities. But what's clear in our tradition is that what was evil was that these cities were against welcoming strangers. Anybody that walked into that city was subject to torture, was subject to arrest. People that tried to help those strangers were subject to assault and to attacks on their loyalty. Abraham, great patriarch and the father of many religious traditions, has this audacity to argue with God and says, don't destroy these awful places. There might be a cohort of just and righteous people in there. And if there is, they should save the entire city. I suggest that the freeholders are the candidates for that righteous cohort. And saving our society from the kind of mindless and hypocritical appeals that will excuse doing what's right, excuse us from our responsibility of doing what's right, this can be redeemed by this body here doing the right thing, by listening and doing the work
30
that we are
seconds.
capable of doing to draft an ordinance that is much better than the one that we have.
Good evening. I'm Pamela McElvin with the Palm Tree Block Association, advocating for Bellswood Park. I was here at the last meeting, and I spoke about krill, the lunch that seniors was getting at the cafe. But after I left and went into the hallway, I was approached by an individual very aggressively. I asked him, who are you? Are you from the senior services? No. I said, are you with krill? No. I said, then why are you coming at me like that? You know, you don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, who are you with? I said, you with UCC? No. Then he said, yeah. So I said, why is you coming at me aggressively? Because there's something wrong with the kitchen. I said, you send the memoranda to the freeholders and they respond to the question I asked about. Tell me what is the problem with the kitchen? I see you in Bellsway Park. Tell me, what is the problem? If everything been passed, all the inspection, why is you coming at me? And I just thankful that my husband and a few friends walked off because he asked me then he came behind me. And I told him, oh, don't worry about it. But he kept saying, I'll see you in Bellsway Park because I goes there each morning. You know, to me, I don't like that, what he did, but I see now within the entities, it's a total lack of communication. It's who's gonna get what, who's gonna get what done first, how much this one, it's like so far out, and I'm really surprised. Because all this is taxpayers' money. My main concern is the seniors and our children within that park. You know, and I wrote a big, email to Josh and Dan, my concern, because it was just so much, and I only have, 3 minutes to talk about it. And they did respond back to me. But far as the cafe, what's going on with Krill, and if you read their policy, Krill policy, someone's supposed to be there every day. Now, they brought in steamers, but they are disgusting, totally disgusting. And they brought them in last week. Okay, so it's right now, I think they're just trying to pacify something, but there's so much lack of communication. That's
30
why
seconds.
things can't get done. They not come, because it's just tremendous. And each time I'm asking questions, it's like, oh, is this okay? Well, that's fine. There's a total lack of communication. That's why, but the way this gentleman approached me, and to me, I'm gonna take it as a threat, because I be in the park every morning when I drop my granddaughter off, and I walks the park, So I didn't appreciate it, and I just want that to go on record about it. I don't know who he was, but he said he was with
Time's
one
up.
of those entities. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Victor Salam, and I'm the Executive Director of First Friends of New Jersey, New York, and a West Orange resident. I want to bring up 2 points, both related, both around the issue of immigrants that are detained in Essex County Correctional Facility. First of all, I want to say that we are grateful for the resolution that we see here for temporary shelter housing for ICE detainees who get released. I think that is a major step forward. And I think it's important to do that, for our community to do that, because for one, I think right now the burden has been on the community, for our volunteers, many times for our volunteers to house detainees who get released, and also for us as First Friends to really take care of that. So we are supportive of the fact that now the burden is shifted to the county, and we appreciate that, and we hope that passes. The second aspect of all this is for those who are in detention. What happens, and I think a lot of people don't understand what happens on a daily basis. So for organizations such as ours, we receive hundreds of phone calls a month from detainees who are detained in Essex County. And what we hear is some complaints. And many of the phone calls are about legal aspects or all that, but we do hear complaints. And one of the things that this task force can offer is an independent, neutral ear to those complaints. And some of them are just, complaints of living in jail, right? But some of them are legitimate, and we have brought those forward to the county, et cetera. So one of the important aspects of this task force is independence, an independent ear, so these can be activated upon in a neutral manner. Now, granted, the county has hired a detainee advocate that works inside the facility, and we welcome that. I think that's great. But I think a lot of the detainees will have a hard time making complaints to someone who works for the jail. So one of the things that we're calling for is an independent detainee advocate that can go into the jail and speak directly to the detainees. So we welcome the conversations. First Friends is part of the group of 15 advocates that have brought forth suggested changes to the ordinance. We think they're very realistic, they're highly doable, and they will create an impact
30
not
seconds.
only for the detainees, but also for officers who work there and for the county itself and for residents. So thank you for thinking about that, and again, thank you for the resolution for the resolution for housing that's really critical for someone who gets released from 7 to 10 p.m. at night and has nowhere to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Squeeze right up.
There we go. Thank you. My name is Audrey Levitin. I am a resident of West Orange and a member of Shomrei Emunah. And I'm here simply, well, first I've been coming to these meetings for about 18 months, and it's very heartening to see that eventually, if enough people come out and express their deep concern about something, things actually can happen. So thank you for that. That I just want to express my view that the nominating process for the people participating on the task force be as transparent as possible, and that the reporting, that the public actually receives reports of whatever the task force finds. But I also just want to remind the people listening that the people in this prison are people in our county facility are people who are undocumented immigrants who are there because we have agreed to implement an intensely unpopular policy that the Trump administration is implementing. And that is why we are here. So while it is great and necessary for there to be better conditions and humane conditions, it is also important to know when the $750,000 for lawyers are going to be dispersed so people who are there can actually get representation and not be in these facilities any longer. And I don't know where that stands, and I'm wondering if I could fill out a form to get an answer to that question. Thank you.
We will put that, we'll put that question on the record regarding the money for legal aid so that you receive a answer in writing. Just very, I mean, the contracts have been executed and that process has started. I did receive my first update, which I have not had a chance yet to review, but I know it was emailed to me within the last probably 24 to 48 hours from the administration regarding the first phases of that program and project. So, but we'll make sure to respond to that request in writing.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarita Eisenberg. I'm a resident of Montclair and also a member of Shomrei Emunah. So I'm here because this really resonates with me because I think about my family history. My family, both my parents' families came over fleeing from violence, from pogroms, from gangs. My grandfather was actually, there were people trying to force him to join what would be comparable to a gang today. They were also, of course, looking for better economic circumstances, but they were fleeing to save their lives. And so I see people today who are fleeing to save their lives, as well as to better their circumstances and their children's circumstances, and they are being put into jails. They're being treated like prisoners, like criminals. So I also want to reiterate that what they need is a system for getting them out into the community where they can have lawyers who represent them, and they don't have to be incarcerated. It's a terrible thing. I can't even imagine what it would have been like for my relatives when they came, my grandparents, what would it have been like for them if they had been thrown in jail. While they are being detained, we need to make sure that their circumstances there are as good as possible. And that, of course, I really commend. I haven't been able to get to every meeting, but I have been very impressed that things are moving and that this ordinance was created. I also want to second about the transparency, how important that is, and the importance of having an independent advocate so that here you are, you're here, you don't speak the language, it's a different culture, everything is so foreign, and you really need somebody that you can trust to talk to. And of course, there's distrust of the people who run the facility, of anybody who's hired by the facility. Who among us wouldn't feel that way? So it's traumatic. It's incredibly traumatic circumstances, and then to have a further trauma, being told that the only person you can talk to is sort of someone who is part of that system, that's just further trauma. It's like becomes abusive. So I think that it's so important to have an independent advocate that they can feel more comfortable. I think also it's very important that all the detainees be apprised of the task force, the process, the advocate, to make sure that they actually know. Because, you can see that this could happen, that could fall through the cracks, that you put this in place, and yet the people who are expected to benefit from it are never informed about it. So thank you.
30 seconds.
Good evening. My name is Julie Gandel, and I live in Essex County. I'm a member of B'nai Keshet. I'm here with Faith in Essex and the I can't talk tonight. Montclair Sanctuary Alliance. Speaking in support of the letter sent to the county on November 1 and co-signed by 15 local advocacy organizations. I was taught by my parents that a society's judged by how we treat the least among us and how we treat the most vulnerable among us. And it breaks my heart that we seem to be treating them with cruelty or at best neglect. I believe there are some key changes that need to be made to the ordinance. In particular, the nomination process should be transparent. The shareholders and advocacy groups should be allowed to nominate members of the task force. There needs to be community input. Additionally, all task force reports should be made public. The contract with ICE and the detention of detainees or anyone in the Essex County Correctional Facility is being done in our name with our tax dollars. There needs to be community input on how they are treated and what is happening there. Thank you very much.
Matt Dragon, West Orange. Since we'll have time later to discuss the Civilian Task Force Ordinance itself, I wanted to raise a few other points now. First, I've gotten no responses from the administration or the freeholders collectively to my on-the-record questions ever over the last 4 months. Not just from the last meeting, not just from, but going back as far as the August meeting where I first asked questions about this topic. And not for any of the meetings in between. I understand the process, I understand it's being worked on, but I still don't have any responses to my questions from 4 months ago. I also asked around and no one else who asked questions at the last meeting had gotten any responses tonight either. So I'm glad that the ordinance has been pushed in terms of voting, or at least that will come up for a vote to be pushed. But in theory, tonight or next week, you could be voting on an ordinance that none of the constituents who have presented their questions to you here have gotten any responses from the administration. I obviously hope that you won't do that, as it's not a great way to kick off the transparency and accountability that this ordinance is supposed to represent. I'd also like to throw another question onto my pile, requesting a formal response, and to have that response sometime before the ordinance comes up for a final vote would be great.
Okay.
Is it true that in 2011, under the current county executive, Joe D., all clergy from the Newark Archdiocese were banned from the ECCF for approximately 6 months after they raised concerns about the facility to the public? If it's not true, then what happened there? Have other religious leaders or advocacy groups had blanket bans applied to them? And would speaking out about the facility or operations of the task force be considered cause for removal under the ordinance being considered as it's written tonight? Thank you.
Good evening, freeholders. My name is Serge Demefak from American Friends Service Committee. I'm here today hopeful that the process that has started is going to lead to some positive outcomes. But I'm also very disturbed to see many chairs here empty. Maybe folks are still enjoying the election night. But I know Ms. Brown is here, congratulations. But I really hope that while they're not here, they're working on the business of the people, because this is not a good sign. I don't know what's more important than the process that we have claimed, or the county has claimed, that it's one of the most advanced laws in the country. I want to see that here. And folks who have made those statements, they're not even here today. You know, we're out there talking to the media, saying how great we are, but we're not showing up for work. Now, regarding providing the 3-day free shelter to immigrants, I say it's a pittance. You know, in fact, I complain about those 3 days. It's not enough. You know, you've kept them there for many months and for years. Now you have to allow them 3 days just to find a way to put their head for 3 nights. In the meantime, you know, they've lost their mortgages, they've destroyed their families, and you give them 3 days, you don't even give them transportation. I've complained about this, you know, during the stakeholders meetings. And obviously, and there are other bigger issues. I mean, I understand the correction officers are here talking about how hard their job has gotten. I'm going to say, you know, you need to consider exactly if that's the kind of work you want to be doing. Jail should not be an economic model to build a county. And this is something that's valid for any country. You cannot transform the prison system into an economy. And we've seen that. We see people coming here, getting contracts, you know, getting blasted $2 million fines and coming to Essex County, getting contracts to provide food here. I'm talking about key food. So, and these are things that are going to continue to disturb the county. If you don't want to hear it, drop it. But if you do want to work with the advocates, put in place the system that we can work with, because so far we are not seeing that system. You know, you create an organization, you create the task force, but before it starts working, before it's even created, you know, we appointed the director, you know, we're out there into how it's already successful.
30 seconds.
No, I've not seen that success yet. There need to be more serious work, and we need to have feedback from the question we've been asking here over and over. It's been more than 2 weeks, now we get to hear any feedback. We're hearing that, you know, the vote has been postponed. We're not waiting for the vote. We want to see progress in the discussion. Or we're going to start, you know, ramp up our pressure and start stalking most of you, because that's not what you want. You want to deliver what you promised when you were elected. Thank you very much.
So many empty chairs. Hi, my name is Faye Letterman. I live in Montclair, and I'm a member of the Never Again Newark chapter. I missed the meeting 2 weeks ago, so this is my first meeting since our successful civil disobedience action on October 3rd. You probably know that on that date we had 250 Jews show up at the plaza of the federal building to protest the ICE contract that the freeholders continue to refuse to break. More than 50 of us blocked the full width of Broad Street for 2 hours. 13 of us were arrested. I want to note that the number of arrests was only a tiny fraction of the number of activists who deeply wanted to be arrested over this issue. But as we know, the Newark police have been instructed by the mayor not to arrest activists, or shall I say not to arrest white Jewish activists or Catholic activists, because it looks bad in the press. Our case was just cleared in Newark Municipal Courts last Thursday, and our attorney, Bennett Zarofsky, wrote about the case in this way. Everything went very well yesterday at the Newark Municipal Court. The prosecutor and the judge were both very sympathetic to the cause of opposing Trump's immigration policies. So I was able to negotiate a downgrade of the charge to Newark's creating a disturbance ordinance with the lowest fine the judge felt he was authorized to impose. Okay, so we have the support of the Newark Municipal Court. And I wonder how they would feel about the way that Trump's policies trickle down to the freeholders' policies. I'm very, very surprised by the tone of most of the public comments in this room. It feels to me as if the creation of an insufficient task force has somehow become a bland stand-in for active outrage over the absolute moral breach of detaining immigrants in the first place and continuing to profit annually to the tune of $40+ million. I stand here again, I think I've been coming maybe a year and a half, almost 2 years, to ask you not for a task force, not for oversight, but to break the contract. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Yael Weber. I'm a member of Congregation B'nai Shalom. I'm with Never Again Newark. I'm also a resident of Essex County. I do agree that with many of the comments that we do need changes to this ordinance to make it transparent, to make it actually have teeth, but the larger issue, I actually did receive a written response to my comments at my questions at the last meeting. My first question about the moment of silence I thought would be an easy one, but I got a non-answer saying that the board typically requests a moment of silence as a gesture of respect for those who have died recently or for a tragic event, which doesn't really tell me on any given week why I have a moment of silence. My second question or request was that the Freeholders send a letter of support to Assembly Speaker Coughlin and State Senate President Sweeney demanding the passage of the driver's license bill. And I was told that you are in the process of crafting a resolution supporting the advancement and passage of that bill. My understanding is that about half of the cases of immigration detention that end up in Essex County begin as a traffic stop. So assuming that this driver's license bill, which we desperately need, is passed, we would expect to have a significant reduction of detainees in that facility because they're not being arrested for driving without a license. In that case, since I've heard repeatedly that the reason we can't close the facility is the concern that we must keep people close to their families, I'm wondering what steps you are planning to take proactively to ensure that ICE doesn't begin filling those beds with people sent here from the border, sent here from other states, because it seems to me that as long as we have the open beds and a very powerful financial incentive to fill them, that we will continue to jail people indefinitely with no due process for what is a civil violation. I want to second everything that my colleague Faye said, that we need to end this contract, that civilian oversight of the jail is of course needed, and that we do need independent oversight, particularly because for the inmates on the other side of the jail, the conditions are not going to be any better than what we have documented in the horrific conditions in ICE detention. But more importantly than that is we need to end the ICE contract. Thank you.
My name is Kathy O'Leary. I'm with Pax Christi. We are a Catholic peace and justice organization. I was one of the organizers of the Catholics for Migrants event on September 4th, where we had between 500 and 600 Catholics in front of the ICE building demanding, among other things, that this contract with ICE in Essex County be terminated. I will start where I left off last time I was here, and that is that we will not have justice until this contract is terminated and all the detention camps are closed, and you stop seeing the people you incarcerate as potential sources of revenue. While this oversight task force is very good, is a very good thing for the jail, particularly for the criminal inmates, it is not what we've been asking for. I have been coming here since 2010 or 2011, and we've been asking for it the entire time. And at one point, we had 4,000 signatures on a petition asking, amongst other things, for just that. I don't really want to argue with the previous speakers, but I note that they did say that there was no pattern and practice of abuse at the jail. I would direct them to the many, many reports that we've gotten, not only from DHS, but also from the NYU Immigrant Rights Clinic. I also don't want to get into a fight with the guards, and I don't think we should make this into a conflict between advocates and guards either. They are victims of the same system of injustice. They are being forced to oppress their brothers and sisters for a living wage. And we should seek to find better employment options for the people of Essex County. I also would like to point out, and I also would like to add a question, if there was any period of time prior to 2011 when the Catholic Archdiocese of Newark was banned from the jail. I have a report from the Archdiocese of Newark Prison Ministry from 2011 that lists prolonged illegal 6-week lockdowns. Extended lockdowns continued to
30 seconds.
2010 that these lockdowns interrupted and disrupted prison ministry, including Easter Sunday services, that terminally ill prisoners were left to die in their cells, that ill prisoners were kept from going to the infirmary. These are things that this report was provided to you. There was never any comments on it.
Time's
There
up.
is absolutely a pattern of abuse, and it goes back many years. Please pass this ordinance. Pass this ordinance as strongly worded as you possibly can, and then close and end the ICE contract. Thank you.
Stacy Gregg, Rockaway. I've been here. I haven't missed the meetings. And I'd like it on record that I was kept outside. This location is not large enough for the people that are coming to this Freeholder meeting. So I'd like to put it on record that the next meeting, based upon the ACLU recommendations, you need to accommodate people that want to come and want to speak and want to view. And that was not happening tonight. I was made to sit outside. We're over the amount of people, unless you want to push your chairs forward and let people have more seats. I'm with Never Again, New Jersey. One of your members came and spoke at Elizabeth and Union regarding not being in favor of Hitler's concentration-type camps, and that's what you are running. And you should be embarrassed. People in Essex County need to shun you when you show up at their events. They should be ashamed to be seen with you in photos because you are the new Hitler. You are the new Gestapo. This is not even new. This has been going on since 2010 from what I'm hearing from previous speakers. To call yourself Democrats, to act like you're not one of Trump's minions, it's a falsehood. You should be ashamed. You should have trouble sleeping at night. Hitler didn't go to the camps. I have been asking over 6 months for a show of hands or an answer, and I have not gotten an answer as to what dates any of you freeholders have shown your faces at these camps for inspections. I have not gotten an answer. Raise your hands now. I know you won't do it. Never mind. Hitler never went to the camps. He just took their clothing and everything they possessed. You just take their dollars every night, the amount of money per head, and then you try and allocate it to zoos. Zoos that you don't even bother reading the contracts about. Zoos that you just give money out to the parks and your friends. $750,000 to kick around the idea of expanding the zoo while you cage human beings that have done nothing wrong other than coming to America asking for admittance. They're asylum seekers. Shame on you. I'm going to have a contest, and I'm going to have children write about what they think about you, the freeholders, the new Nazis, and what you've done and what you continue to do. You need to free the people that are in those camps, that are in Newark, at those 2 detention centers, and you need to do it tomorrow. You need to liberate them. You want to be seen in a picture ever again without shame?
30
Make
seconds.
it in front of the camps while you free them. You deny them attorneys. This is a camp where it's in a system where they listen in between the conversations between the attorneys and the detainees. Do the responsible thing. I talked about the stink last meeting. You didn't get there. Raise your hands if you've been there in this last month. There's no oversight. You're a bunch of liars and hypocrites. Deportation Joe has his hands on you, his thumb on you, telling you what to do. Yes, Mrs. Siebold, my time is over, and so will your terms be over. You'll be voted out.
Hi, Paula Poles. I'm a taxpayer of the county.
Please speak into the mic.
Paula Poles, taxpayer of the county. I'm here to state my opposition to the Civilian Review Board when it comes to the oversight and recommendation of the officers that work at the detention centers. The board is being implemented because of the investigation which was done in Falcon County in violations of basic human needs, along with poor and inhumane treatment. The treatment was very specific, such as rundown facilities, expired food, and custodies being housed away from their families. The investigation did not identify officers or superior officers who violated any inmates. Instead, the officers were only able to provide the custodies with the food that they had. The officers can't repair the buildings or provide basic needs for the inmates. The administration does that. You, as the freeholders, are supposed to ensure that the county is run properly. To date, has anyone been reprimanded, brought up on charges, sanctioned, or fired? Officers must adhere to the U.S. and New Jersey Constitution, the New Jersey and administrative law, AG guidelines, case law, prosecutor directives, county ordinances, rules and regs, department general orders, and memorandums. If those laws and rules are violated, they're subjected to departmental charges. When an officer does commit a crime that is criminal or in violations of someone's civil rights, he or she goes before a civilian review board called the grand jury, whether it's federal or state, who will either choose to indict or not indict the officer for those violations. In conclusion, and you're going to uphold this for accountability, make sure that you hold the right people in accountability, which is the people who are actually not doing the job, and support the officers by making sure that they can have the tools to provide to do their job.
You can raise the mic.
Good evening. My name is Molly Lindhorst, and I am a legal fellow at the ACLU of New Jersey, here to deliver a statement on our behalf. The ACLU of New Jersey both opposes immigration detention and strongly supports the creation of independent civilian oversight at the Essex County Jail. Such oversight will protect all people held there, including not only immigration detainees, but also pretrial detainees and people serving sentences. As the comments made tonight demonstrate, Essex County communities are deeply invested in protecting the safety and rights of all people held at the jail. Now, many community members here have called for certain amendments to be made to the ordinance establishing the civilian task force. These proposed amendments include the addition of an explicit requirement that the task force's reports be made public, the creation of a formal mechanism for community groups to nominate members of the task force, and the addition of language making it clear that the task force may investigate both systemic concerns and individual incidents. The ACLU of New Jersey believes the civilian task force must be as independent and transparent as possible, and supports the adoption of amendments recommended by the community to achieve that goal. Thank you.
Good evening. Gregory Palmer, President, Essex PBA 183A. I actually didn't plan on speaking tonight. I spoke last meeting in opposition to the Civilian Review Board, and I stand by my comments. But sitting here listening to most of the speakers tonight, it's apparent that they need a history lesson. Most of us in this room, whether it be our grandparents, great-grandparents, were immigrants, but they came over to this country legally. And the treatment that they received by the WASPs that were here was terrible. Not to mention what the blacks went through. The people that are here now, they have come over illegally.
Please respect everyone's right to speak. Everyone has a right to speak uninterrupted.
Thank you. They have come over illegally, and they're going through a process. We are a country of laws, and the process is taking its course. And to compare our up-to-date Essex County facility that is cleaned, well-maintained, has appropriate climate control systems, to the death camps is an insult to my Jewish relatives and my Jewish friends. It's disgusting, and it's an insult to equate our county executive to Adolf Hitler. Should be ashamed of yourselves for saying things of that nature. So I really suggest you maybe read some history books and you examine your conscience. And that's basically what I have to say this evening. Thank you.
All right, cowboy, citizen in Newark, been around for 50 or more years in the parks, and I'm seeing things, how they're changing around, and I was wondering if anybody noticed, is there any changes at all, or is it just looking like it? Like you have the new football field and baseball, and the only ones I really see down there working is the maintenance, and the people that is cutting the grass and keeping the place looking good. Now, I was going through some things and asked, and since I hadn't gotten any good answers when I come up here to see things getting done, I said maybe I'll come up here and let known that I have called up here 5 or 6 times, 5 or 6 weeks, 2 and 3 times a week to get an answer to kind of help the people of Newark with the water situation. I had a seminar that I really liked and it helped me. And I thought maybe I could hold it off in Newark at the community center. And I called up here to executive of the Health and Society with the officer, the leader who was in charge of that for Krill and whatever. He said he would get back to me the next day, but the next day never came. I've been calling up here 5 or 6 times, leaving my name just to get an answer of yes or no I could hold a seminar in the park. And I said, it seems like, I said, these are executives that's in charge of things, but yet and still he said that he got to see if he can get an answer for me and get me back to me the next day. Now, I know a lot of people are suffering in Newark with the water situation, and I figure I had something to show them that we could help them. And I know it's going to take a year or more for them pipes to be changed, and I have something that I know that it helped me because I had gout in my foot, and this water helped me, and the machine helped me. And I said, all I'm interested in is seeing that the people are being helped that might need help and can get help. But I don't see the executives not following through to give me that permission. And I would like to, I don't want to mention no names.
30 seconds.
But I hope that what I'm saying, that when you call up here to get permission in the park, that you can get that permission, because that's their job, to give the people the help that they need to figure out what they can do to make the park better. And I'll be back again to talk about that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lisa Auslander. I'm a member of Essex. I'm a resident of Essex County. I'm just here really to add my my name to the voices that have already spoke. I've come to meetings, but I haven't spoken, but I just want to add my name. My name's Lisa Auslander. I'm also a member of the B'nai Keshet organization and congregation. I'm here with Faith in Essex and the Montclair Sanctuary Alliance, and I'm a person of faith. I'm an Essex County resident, like I said, and I really feel strongly about the need to protect the most vulnerable among us. I've been volunteering also for First Friends and really seen up close the stories and the people affected by this contract and by these conditions, and it strikes right to my heart and to my spirit, and I just really feel there are many people who feel strongly about this in Essex County, and I hope you really respond to our voices, and for the people here who can't speak for themselves. So I'm speaking in support of the letter sent to the county this past week and co-signed by 15 local advocacy organizations. There's so much support, and we're hoping that you really respond. We really want the nomination process to be made transparent for this oversight task force. We really believe this is a key element to making a change. So stakeholders and advocacy groups must be allowed to nominate members of the task force. Civilian means there is a community input. And we also really believe that these reports need to be made public. We understand the county has appointed, like many have said, an internal detainee, but we really want an independent detainee advocate. And we really hope and pray that you listen to the voices in this room and that you'll commit to allowing the Civilian Oversight Task Force to operate independently and with transparency and with community input, which we believe is a real important part of your role. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. I'm Charlene Walker, the Executive Director of Faith in New Jersey, and many of the faith leaders, members of B'nai Keshet, are all part of Faith in New Jersey's Faith in Essex chapter. I am here, I spoke last week, so I'm not going to echo the same words from last week. What I do want to lift up, however, is that as a person of faith, I believe in the inherent worth and dignity of all people. That being said, I also believe that we shouldn't be using racially toned language, calling people the blacks and whatever else when we're speaking in this type of a forum. I also believe that that is really concerning for me. Being a person that's actually concerned about the well-being of all people, I'm concerned about the well-being of the correctional officers, those people that are being unfortunately housed in these conditions. And now I'm even more concerned because we have somebody that works that's part of the PPA using that term, and I'm concerned about the staff that are the blacks or those that are being housed within there, because we know that there's all these racial disparities of the people that are residing within Essex County Prison. How can we understand or believe that the conditions can be well when people can be viewed as other? I just don't understand. So one thing I want to lift up is that I think that there is a need for a moral voice to be placed on this task force. That means that there should be a faith leader, one that ministers and has congregational members that are correctional officers, that serve the immigrant community, that are that has people that are within the prisons. I think that that would bring some type of morality to the task force to make sure that the voices of everybody involved is always being looked at and that the humanity is always being looked at. And I also want to say that we still believe that there needs to be an abolition of all sorts of forms of any systems that profit off of bodies in any way, shape, or form. And even though we are moving towards that, we understand that there is a need for some form of oversight while we are trying to do that. That's all I have to say.
Good evening, Essex County Freeholders. Douglas Freeman, Southport Republican Chair. I was out in the hallway and heard some disturbing comments in regards to using adjectives to describe my race. One of the races that we go by, and I said it before over and over again, we're going to come to this microphone and speak about our people. We're American. And that's who we are. We're not black, Negro, all the different adjectives that you think you've been using for the last 400 years. We're American, all right? I come from a family as a free man. My family owned a beach in North Carolina, but it was a private beach. It was private because it was segregated. That's the reason why it was private. So when you start saying the history, make sure you correct all the history. Because some people came here and it wasn't by being able to say it was just illegal. It was illegal because they was brought here in the bottom of a ship. Shackled. So at the end of the day, you're continuing to come before this microphone and you're disconnecting yourselves from humanity. And when you do that, yes, they're going to come out here and speak against you. I have worked very well with the Essex County Freeholders, President. And these things that we're able to accomplish can be done together. But y'all fight each other back and forth. So my thing, and I've been asking the ICE people a long time ago, when did you sit down and just have a cordial conversation? You sit down in the middle of the streets of Newark. We're trying to rebuild Newark, which looks bad for Newark, but you ain't did that in your neighborhood. So if you do not live here, I want to sit down on your streets now. And this goes to you. You sit down in the middle of Broad Street. Where do you live at? Let's have your next rally, and I'll sit down with you in the middle of your street. Have a great day.
Okay. Madam Clerk, let the record reflect that there's no one wishing to speak at this time. Quick couple of comments so we can move through the rest of the agenda. On the I know during public comment, the driver's license bill and request was raised. It is on the agenda for tonight. There is a resolution that I'm hoping will pass. So that has been listed and to be sent to the speaker and the leadership of the assembly. And just to put on the record, there was a resolution passed probably about 4 years ago on said issue. So just wanted to just put that on the record. Secondly, this ordinance, again, which has absolutely comes from a place of trying both to respond and to do something that has not been done before. So I know that there were multiple people who talked about the issue of transparency. I would just say that in terms of the process, and of course there's always room for improvement, this has been an unbelievably, I believe, transparent process, and it is my hope that if and when this ordinance is passed, the transparency will continue in terms of who serves on this task force. Multiple parts of this ordinance were drafted in conjunction through many meetings with the ACLU to try to ensure that we have that level of transparency. And in fact, the selection of who will serve on this ordinance, and I don't know almost what more an ordinance can do to ensure that we have representation from the many different groups who are represented here tonight, including but not limited to former detainees, including but not limited to making sure that we have a representative from inmate advocacy organizations. And let me take a step back and say, I'll just say this to not to sound like I'm defending this ordinance and saying this is the best ordinance of all time. I'm saying this and putting this on the record to say that I'm hearing a common theme around transparency, around who will serve, and making sure that that process moves forward in the right way. And right now, it is my opinion that this ordinance does that. This ordinance does that in conjunction with many of the groups who are here tonight to speak about it. I also wanted to say, just to reference our representatives who came to speak tonight on behalf of our brothers and sisters who work in the facility. I do believe that we're in the process of meeting with them. I do believe that at this point in time, they are coming a little bit late and probably should have been notified a little bit earlier, and I think they have some substantive recommendations that we want to take a look at. So put that on the record, also let the administration know that those meetings are happening, at least on our side, and we received some correspondence that we're going to review and obviously share with the administration as well, as we move forward. But one thing I think should be noted that was said by the representatives of the PBA, this ordinance, and again, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but this ordinance is stronger, as noted by the representatives of the PBA, than the current ordinance that exists with the city of Newark that came out of a federal consent decree. So the idea that this ordinance is not strong, I have to respectfully disagree, is just false. This ordinance is unbelievably strong. If we were to pass it in its current form right now, it would be one of the strongest independent oversight boards that would exist, not only in this state, but in this country. So, everyone's entitled, to their own opinions, but you're not entitled to your own set of facts. That's just factually not true. This is a strong ordinance, even if it were passed in its form that it currently exists. And again, that doesn't mean we're going to seek to make it even stronger and even better, and that we're not taking all of that comment. But I just felt the strong need to put that in some perspective, and that the county right now does, and I understand that the trust level has been broken, but the county right now does not have to do this. Is under no obligation to do this. So as the leader of the legislative branch of county government, I am taking the fact that the administration is working on this collaboratively and closely with us as a sign that they want to do more, that they are recognizing that we need to do more. So, and I think that's important to be recognized. So with that, Madam Clerk, do we have any ordinances or resolutions for introduction and first reading?
Mr. President, we have one.
Okay.
Or-
Madam Clerk, please read ordinance number 1 into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson, can you please explain the ordinance?
Good evening, Mr. President. Executive Director Herman is here to explain this ordinance.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Elmer Herman, Executive Director of the Essex County Utilities Authority. We're the regulatory agency for the collection of solid waste in Essex County. We're also the holder of the Essex County District Solid Waste Management Plan. And before you this evening is an ordinance by way of a plan amendment for an increase in capacity at a particular location owned by Lemcor, L-E-M-C-O-R, at 170 Frelinghuysen Avenue, Newark, New Jersey, from 630 tons to 870 tons. It has been set forth in the documentation that we have filed with the board. This is a facility on Frelinghuysen Avenue all the way down by the railroad yards close to the airport. This application is supported by the city administration. There is a letter from Mayor Baraka. There is a resolution of support from the city council, and there is strong support from the ward councilman. This is actually the tip of the south ward all the way down, as I said, in an industrialized area. The Essex County Utilities Authority looks very carefully at these type of applications, and we have carefully looked at this application. And we are recommending it because in addition to the industrialized area, which the administration of Newark is indicating that it feels that this increase will help development in that area, there is a need that has been demonstrated for additional waste disposal in that particular location. But at the very same time, in connection with this application, there is another facility owned by the same ownership, Lemcor Inc., and I might say Mr. Harmon Lem, an old Newark family man, is here, which is a location on Foundry Street, 221 Foundry Street, a location that's much closer to residential areas. That location is going to be closed. They have submitted their permit to the DEP for cancellation. We've taken them out of the plan, so 221 Foundry Street, which had a capacity of 1,580 tons every day, will be permanently closed. So actually, we're suggesting that the increase at Frelinghuysen Avenue is appropriate with the substantial decrease that will take place as a result of the closing of 221 Foundry Street. There's actually a total decrease of 1,350 tons per day. In addition, we have our environmental specialist here with me today, Wayne DeFeo. At the time that this application was being processed, the DEP came down with a very strong directive about community notification and environmental justice. And the applicant here has complied with all of the things that the DEP wanted. There were 2 meetings that were held that were set up at a location by Councilman John Sharp James in the ward, in the area where this facility is located, one at day, one at night. Signs were posted to advise everyone that this application was taking place. So it is our feeling as the regulatory agency this is a proper application, and we are recommending it to the Board of Freeholders to be passed on first reading. As a plan amendment is required, it needs to have a public hearing and a second and final reading by this board, and then the ultimate determination, of course, goes to the DEP for its, as I say, the ultimate decision. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Palavecchio?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Herman, just a couple of questions. Thank you very much for the explanation. The facility on Frelinghuysen Avenue, although the capacity there is increasing, I think what you said is the overall capacity within the county's plan is actually decreasing as a result of the the closure of the Foundry Street.
By 1,350 tons per day.
Okay, so the excess that's not going over to Frelinghuysen is not going to some other facility within the county.
No, the Foundry Street is completely being closed. As I said, their permit has been surrendered, and we've taken them out of the plan.
Okay, and by extension, with the closure of a location on Foundry Street, which, like you said, is closer to residential, that would mean, I would suspect, a reduction of truck traffic in that area, of garbage truck traffic.
There may be some additional truck traffic due to the increase at the 170 Frelinghuysen, but that's all highway traffic. As I said, it's down by the airport and by the railroad yards.
Okay.
There wouldn't be any truck traffic because Foundry Street will be permanently closed.
And like you said, even after it passes through, assuming it passes through this board, the DEP still has the ultimate
They have the
approval.
ultimate decision.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. McInerney?
In line with the fact that there's a decrease in the daily tonnage, is there any mandated amount of tonnage that the county is responsible to bring to the resource recovery facility?
There is no longer. There used to be.
There used to be a put or pay, so that's totally,
No, there is no put or pay.
okay. Thank you.
Freeholder Siebold?
Thank you. I have a question. Why is there a decrease in the tonnage?
Because the same ownership, the same owner owns both disposal facilities.
Okay.
We're increasing the Frelinghuysen from 630 to 870. But the Foundry Street had a capacity of 1,580 per day. So if you do the arithmetic, that is a net decrease of 1,350 tons per day.
But don't you get the same tonnage in?
No, because the other place is being closed.
But what happens to that tonnage?
They have to find another facility.
That's
That
what I'm
tonnage
asking.
it's not going anyplace because that facility will be completely closed.
So the tonnage will go someplace else?
Somewhere.
You don't
But
know
it doesn't, but it could be out of county, it could be Hudson County, it could be Union County, it could be Bergen County, it could be a number of places.
Okay.
But every one of these facilities that we regulate in the county has a maximum daily capacity. And any violation of that is a violation that we take action on, and is definitely a violation that the DEP takes action on.
So they'll have to find someplace else for the tonnage. All right. Thank you.
McInerney?
But I think that gets to Mr. Palavecchio's point. There is still that amount of tonnage, correct? But it will go elsewhere. It's not going to another Essex County facility.
But the closing of Foundry Street, which had been there for a long, long time, and was placed there years and years and years ago, which is close to residential dwellings, is now eliminated. That, in our judgment at the ECUA, is a very important thing.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's disputing it. I think I'm a little confused whether we're talking about capacity at that facility or actual tonnage at that facility in terms of what's being reduced. If there is a net reduction in the actual tonnage, then to Freeholder Seabold's point, it has to go somewhere. So, and they think that was what Mr. Polavecchio was asking. I think you did answer that by saying it is going somewhere, but it's not going to another Essex County facility. It'll find a home, like you said, elsewhere out of county. That's within the solid waste plan, that stuff can go out of.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Has there been a support resolution, affirmative support, either resolution or letter from the city on this?
There's a letter from Mayor Baraka personally. There's a resolution. These are all attachments to the freehold. There's a resolution of the New York City Council, and there's John Sharp James, who's the South Ward Councilman, is strongly supportive of this. In fact, as I indicated, he was the one that set up these two meetings, the day and night meeting at the Holiday Inn down at the airport. And when the Utilities Authority passed this a couple of weeks ago, Councilman James Sharp James sent his chief of staff to speak affirmatively for this increase. And also, the new director of economic development of the city came to our meeting and also spoke affirmatively in support of this increase.
Freeholder Siebel?
Going back to the tonnage, could there be a problem that no one would accept the excess tonnage?
I don't see.
You said it will go someplace else.
Yeah. I'm sure there may be some facilities that are underutilized. I don't know of any offhand, but, you know, we're in the metropolitan area. I mean, you have these same transfer stations, material recovery facilities close by in Bergen County. You have them in Hudson. You have them in Secaucus.
I understand that, but what if they don't want ours?
Well, I just don't think that's a problem.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll find a place to go.
All right.
And it, just as a process question, this still has to go back then to the DEP,
Yeah, the process is, and I didn't mention the Solid Waste Advisory Council, SWAC. They were the initial approver, and then to us, the ECUA, then to the Freeholder Board, first reading, public hearing, second reading, and final passage if that occurs, then to the DEP for the final decision. So the DEP could countermand anything that's done here, but hopefully that would not be the case.
Right.
But they would have the authority to do that.
Right, so there's another level of review still yet to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Freeholders, additional questions or comments? Okay, Freeholders, do I have a motion and a second to
move it.
introduce? Moved by Freeholder
I'll
Siebel.
second.
Second by Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebel. Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano, absent Freeholder Johnson, absent Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Madam Clerk. Moving to ordinance and resolutions on second reading and public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have any ordinances on resolutions for listing purposes only?
Mr. President, we have one. Ordinance number O-2019-00016.
Okay, Madam Clerk, you can list ordinance O-2019-00016 for public hearing at our November 13th public meeting. Madam Clerk, do we have any ordinance and resolutions on second reading and public hearing tonight?
Mr. President, we have two. The first ordinance is ordinance number 0-29-0015. Would you like me to read this into? The title is Ordinance Establishing the Fee Schedule of the Essex County Police Academy.
We can take this one first. The script is taken together.
Mr. President?
Mr. McInerney, yes.
If I may, on ordinance 2019-16. The ordinance and the agenda is reading $1.4 million. It should be $14 million.
The resolution itself is correct. It's just on the,
Just
how
on
it's written on the
agenda there,
On
but
the
I just
agenda,
wanted to make that
14
clear.
million, okay.
just needs a zero.
Have to add a zero there, okay. Thank you. Moving back, thank you, Mr. McInerney. Moving back, is there anything we need to do, Mr. Palavecchio?
No, because it's fine on the resolution.
On the supporting document, okay. Moving to, again, ordinance 2019-00015. I hereby declare the public hearing open. If there's any member of the public who would like to comment for or against this ordinance, please come to the microphone, state your name and affiliation. For the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. This is an ordinance establishing the fee schedule for the Essex County Police Academy. Okay, Mr. McInerney, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I do not.
Okay, Mr. Parlavecchio, do you have
No.
any questions or comments?
No, I don't.
Freeholders, do you have any questions or comments?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Freeholder Mercado, second by Freeholder Palmeris. Do I have the same mover and second?
Yes.
Thank you. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson, absent. Freeholder Luciano, absent. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Palmares. Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent. Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Which will allow more flexibility for next week, so we'll have to vote. I think that's what we'll do. Okay, at this time, Madam Clerk, before we move to ordinance 2019-00017, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mr. Parlavecchio to talk through with the board a potential option for us.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. This is the ordinance on second reading and public hearing to establish the civilian task force at the correctional facility. As was mentioned earlier in the meeting, in light of the more than dozens of comments, both in person and through email over the last week and tonight, and even right up to the time of the meeting that have been received from members of the public on this, I think it's the will of the chair as well as the rest of the board to take some time to digest these things and give them due consideration for potential changes to or inclusion in the ordinance itself. What I'm recommending is having the ordinance read on second reading by title only. We can open the public hearing, but then adjourn the ordinance to the next meeting. What that means is public hearing, the public comment for public hearing could be done at the next meeting. Clearly, we had 45 minutes or so of public comment, although not within the body of the public hearing, but I think we can preserve that so that the public can be heard at a time where the board may vote, which would be could have the opportunity to vote next week. Obviously, there may be additional consideration or additional comments received between now and then, but that would be my recommendation. So it would be read it by title, take a motion to open the public hearing, then take a motion to adjourn, and we can put the specifics of the time, place, and location of next week's meeting to continue the public hearing.
Would that, Mr. Parlavecchio, allow both for the option to vote on either final passage next week or to adjourn it again if it was determined that there was more time needed, or if there was a decision made to introduce amendments to the ordinance?
That's a good point. I'm going to take your second point first. If there were amendments that changed, made substantial changes to the ordinance, it would be my recommendation to not reintroduce, but have a separate meeting which that could be read with the amendments. The amended ordinance could be read with amendments, and then we could have a full public hearing. But if that didn't happen and we conducted the public hearing next week with an eye towards voting, whether or not you voted, you could adjourn and or you could keep the public hearing open, again adjourn it, or just move it to a subsequent meeting. Yeah, you're not forced into voting tonight or tomorrow or next week.
Okay. That makes sense to me. I just want to make sure that we protect anyone who came tonight who didn't speak during public comment, who was waiting for the public portion of the second reading, who might have waited. I just want to make sure that their opportunity to speak will still be protected.
Absolutely.
At a
For
later,
next-
at the next meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
So I think the first step would be to read it. We could open the public hearing and then take a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Do we have to have a motion to have a public hearing?
To open it,
Yes.
and then within that, a motion to adjourn it and keep it open. Yeah, so you wouldn't close the public hearing, and that's what preserves it for the next meeting.
Motion has to be made to have a public hearing. We have the public hearing.
No, what we're doing, Freeholder Siebold, you have the second reading. You read it by the title that's listed there. Motion to open the public hearing. At that point, we would adjourn the public hearing, leaving open the public hearing, but adjourn it to continue at the next, not essentially conduct a second public hearing tonight.
understand. Thank you.
But there would be opportunity at the next meeting
Right.
to conduct that full public hearing with or without the amendments, if there are any, between now and then.
Okay, so I hereby declare, the public hearing on ordinance O-2019-00017. If there's any member of the public who would like to comment for or against this ordinance, please come to the microphone, state your name and
Well,
affiliation.
hold on, Mr. President.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
So we need
Fir-
to do we need to read the ordinance?
First thing, Madam Clerk, if you would read the ordinance by title, then we open it, but we're not doing we're not bringing them to the mic.
Madam Clerk was saying to me 4 times she needs to read the ordinance. I
Yeah.
should pay attention to the clerk.
Ordinance number O-2019-00017, ordinance establishing an Essex County Correctional Facility Civilian Task Force.
I hereby declare the public hearing on ordinance O-2019-00017 open. If there's any member.
And before you
Yeah.
call anybody to the mic, the recommendation would be to keep the public hearing open, adjourn to the meeting of, hang on one second, Wednesday, November 13th, 2019, at 7 o'clock p.m., Maplewood Town Hall, 574 Valley Street, Maplewood, New Jersey. And at that time, there will be opportunity. The public hearing will continue at that point.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
You've moved to open the public hearing.
That's done already.
So at this point, I can move to adjourn the public hearing until next week's meeting in Maplewood, and that is
November 13th at 7 p.m. Maplewood
At
Town
7
Hall.
p.m. I move that we adjourn until then.
Okay, second by Freeholder Graham. So again, we have a motion. I want to make sure I'm describing this. We have a motion on the floor to adjourn the public hearing to the November 13th meeting, 2019, 7 p.m. Maplewood Town Hall, 574 Valley Street in Maplewood. And we have a mover and a second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebold. Yes. Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent. Freeholder Pomares. Yes. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano, absent. Freeholder Johnson, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Point of clarification. Robert's Rules, point of clarification.
I could answer a question.
Thank you. So the ordinance was read for the second time tonight. It was not read in full with the amendment that Mrs. Seabolt made regarding holding off on the public portion. I'd
So-
like it read in its entirety, what it is. I don't know about the legality of it. I mean, are you going to vote for it final on the next meeting in Maplewood, or is that the second reading again? You might as well hold it and just open it up.
Okay, hang on.
It's a split vote.
Can I just say what happened? There was no amendment made. It's in the same condition it was on first. The ordinance is unchanged from the first reading at this point. What happened?
Where are the changes from the public?
Okay. There have been no changes made yet. The public hearing will be continued next week. Whether or not there are amendments made between now and then,
They have to be a week ahead. They have to be put out on Friday.
they'll be put out if there are any amendments made. If they're substantial, if they substantively change the amendment, change the ordinance, then we would conduct a whole second reading again.
So this is Tuesday, and we're talking about...
Today's Wednesday.
I'm sorry. Oh, it's not even Tuesday. It's Wednesday.
Yep.
So any changes that are going to be made in the next 48 hours need to be published so that people can see it before they do have a public content. So I'm asking for the legality of this ordinance, what in fact you did do with the comments from the public and the letters and the correspondence that isn't forthcoming. I want to know about the legality of it, and Robert's rule of point of order.
Okay,
You sound like you're trying to accomplish something in 2 meetings that is improper. You need to just hold off on the vote.
There is no vote tonight on the ordinance, okay? It was just a vote to carry it over to the next meeting. In the event any of the comments that were made get incorporated into the ordinance.
So the second reading is not getting voted on tonight?
That's correct.
So you're tabling it?
Essentially, yes.
So then why don't we just use the terms tabling it rather than singling out that you're leaving it open?
Because I'm a stickler for Robert's rules, and tabling only gets you to the end of the meeting, and adjournment gets you to a subsequent meeting. That's
So
the
is it
real
an
reason.
adjournment? Because you didn't say that.
I did say that.
So it's an adjournment of
That's
this
correct.
one on opening a civilian task force?
Just as basic, simply, the ordinance is unchanged from the first time you read it.
Okay.
And the purpose is, because of all the public comment and emails, et cetera, I think everybody wants the chance to digest it and discuss whether or not changes should be made and
So
included.
there'll be changes before the final vote, which will not be next week?
If there are changes to be made, then they
But
can
there
be
may-
voted on.
And they may not be.
And it's
there
not
may
going to
not
be voted on next meeting. It'll be another meeting,
Well,
final
what I
reading.
can tell you is the public hearing will be continued next week, so there'll be an opportunity for additional public comment. Whether or not there's a vote, if there's another 100 pages of changes that the board wants to consider or incorporate or amend the ordinance, then there may not be a vote. But there certainly is not a vote on the ordinance itself for passage tonight.
Okay, and point of order for clarification, is Joe D. still the head of the ordinance where he appoints who he wants to be the leader of it?
Okay,
Did you make a
it's as
change?
written, there's no changes yet.
From the very first one, there were no changes made
Correct.
whatsoever.
It's
So it's not an independent, as of yet, it is not an independent review board. Thank you.
Those are your words, but that,
I'm asking you, is the head of the freeholders appointing the board?
If you have Ms. Brotlick, if we have a question on the Robert's Rules of Order, that's been answered. This is a question on the substantive piece of the ordinance.
Which I have to wait till next week to answer, to get answered.
all I could say is it's unchanged. However you read it before today.
That he gets
it's
to
the same.
appoint who he wants to do the oversight.
No, actually, no, it's with the advice and consent of the Freeholder Board. So, no,
So it's
that's
the
actually wrong.
fox guarding the hen house. Thank you.
There would be no other way to do, there would be no other way to do it. Unless we just change we need to change the entire form of government. So, that's just inaccurate. Okay, Madam Clerk, moving to, we have the motion, we took the vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
on to the resolutions.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to resolution number 1, which we can read into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson, please explain the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is from the Office of Accounts and Control. This is approval of our 2018 Single Audit Corrective Action Plan. We have from that, we have developed an action plan for some of the recommendations from that audit. There are 4 audit findings from the Division of Housing and Community Development. Those are the only 4 for the entire county. 2 of those have already been corrected, and the other 2 will be done by the time of the next audit.
Okay. Mr. Parlavecchio.
No questions.
Mr. McInerney.
No questions.
Freeholders, questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
I will, Mr. President.
Moved by Freeholder Palmera, second by Freeholder Siebold. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebold.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent Freeholder Palmares.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano, absent Freeholder Johnson, absent Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Moving to resolution number 2. Moving to resolution number 2, which will be leading to the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, Mr. Muhammad is here to address this item.
Good evening,
Good evening.
freeholders. My name is Asif Mahmood. I'm Principal Engineer at the Essex County Department of Public Works, Verona, New Jersey. So tonight we have Irvington Avenue Streetscape Construction Inspection Project that's been recommended for awarding to OMSUM Engineering from Piscataway, New Jersey. We have Viral Patel from this engineering company. If freeholders would like to ask any questions, they are here.
Okay, Mr. Parlavecchio.
I don't have any questions.
Mr. McInerney.
No questions.
Freeholders. Can we just hear it briefly from the contractor?
The contractor for this project was approved last meeting.
Oh,
AA Bums
so he was here.
from Belleville, New Jersey.
Oh, right. How could I forget? Freeholders, additional questions or comments?
Happy to move, Mr. President.
Okay.
I'll second.
Freeholder Palmera, second by Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper, absent Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano, absent Freeholder Johnson, absent Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Palmares.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President absent, Freeholder Siebold.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Moving to resolution number 3, read into the record at a later time.
Mr. Zates.
Thanks.
Joshua Zates, Essex County Parks. Resolution number 3 and resolution number 4 are related in that resolution number 3 is the funding mechanism for resolution number 4. Number 3 is authorization from the Open Space Trust Fund, the Open Space Trust Fund in the amount of $70,000 to fund the Rutgers Cooperative Extension Program. And then number 4 is the actual contract with the Rutgers Cooperative Extension Program. They have been with the county working side by side with the Environmental Center for many numbers of years now, and we do have a representative from Rutgers here to answer any specific questions you may have.
Good evening, freeholders. My name is Jan Sientek. I'm the department chair of Rutgers Cooperative Extension, representing my colleagues in 4-H and environmental and the Environmental Resources Agent. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have about our program. We're happy to say that we have 4-H youth programming and environmental outreach education going on in almost all the communities of Essex County. We have a very active Master Gardener program with over 150 volunteers working to support the Parks Department, both Branchford Park, Brookdale Park, and a couple of other parks that escape my memory right now, and also at the zoo. And it's been a relationship that's almost 100 years old, and we'd like to continue. So.
Thank you. Freeholder Siebold.
Yes, Jan represents Rutgers, and he's been working for Essex County for many years, and he does a wonderful, wonderful job, and I'm glad you're going to continue.
Thank you. Ms. Parlavecchio?
No questions.
Ms. McInerney?
No questions.
I'll
Oh,
move it.
Thank you, Freeholder Siebold. I just, why don't we read resolution, why don't we take 3 and 4 together? We'll read resolution 4 into the record at a later time since they're related. Moved by Freeholder Siebold. Second by Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebold. Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent. Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano, absent. Freeholder Johnson, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Moving to resolution number 5, which we can read into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson?
Mr. Zaid?
Joshua Zates, Essex County Parks. Resolution number 5 is a contract award to Land Tech Group in the amount of $226,850 for maintenance, repair, inspection services of synthetic turf athletic fields throughout the park system. As the board is aware, the park system has been diligent in creating various turf fields throughout, and this contract will be to fix, maintain any repairs. The way it works is if Parks Department personnel notice some tears, rips, whatever you want to say, we would contact the vendor to come inspect it. The vendor would make a recommendation as to how it should be repaired. The parks maintenance staff would then review those recommendations, and then if we're in agreement, we would issue a work order for them to go out and then make those repairs. And we do have a representative of the company here.
Good evening. My name is Chris Walsh with the Land Tech Group. I'm the Senior Project Manager for the Synthetic Turf Maintenance Division. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Parlavecchio?
Yes, I actually have a question, I think, for Josh. Josh, how many turf fields will this contract cover?
Joshua Zates, Essex County Parks. To you, Mr. President, it would be for any turf field throughout the park system.
Anything we have.
Correct.
Okay, it's not a, do we have, I'm sorry, do we have all field turf, or do we have a mix of different?
I would say the majority is field turf, but there are some that are not field turf.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McInerney?
No questions.
Freeholders?
I'll move it.
Moved by Freeholder Siebold. Second by Freeholder Graham. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson, absent. Freeholder Luciano, absent. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent. Freeholder Siebold.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to resolution number 6, which is from the Department of Economic Development. We can read it into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson?
Yes, Director Mumford is here to address this item.
Good evening. Julius Montfort, Essex County Division of Training and Employment Director. This evening, resolution number 6 involves non-class size training contracts for all our constituents, which comes through the Essex County One Stop. A month ago, I was before you for class size contracts, which are contracts that we submit an RFP, vendors bid on those contracts, and we put those contracts together as a group size contract, such as 50 students at $50,000. This particular allocation of $2.5 million is for individuals who get to make their own choice, who come through WIOA, TANF, Food Stamp, SNAP, and GA, and they get to go out and they choose, they have to go to 3 different schools and they make the choice on their own. What you're essentially voting on tonight is allowing us the ability to approve these contracts without having to come back here for all 360 individually contracts.
Thank you. Ms. Parlavecchio?
No questions.
Ms. McInerney?
Is this the contract we were talking about last meeting? These are $4,500?
Exactly.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Please. Freeholder Siebold?
Thank you. Julius Mumford has a very, very difficult job, and we're lucky we have him to really take care of what needs to be done. And I'm very happy to move it.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I'd be very happy to second it.
It was moved by Freeholder Siebold, second by Freeholder Pomares. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebold.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson, Absent Freeholder Pomare.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano, absent Freeholder Johnson, absent Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Clerk.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Let's move through resolutions 7 through 9, which are from the Department of Citizen Services. We can read them into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, Director Burnett and her team are here to address these items.
Good evening. I'm Keisha P. Burnett, Acting Division Head of the Division of Family Assistance and Benefits. And the purpose of this request is due to the ICE detainees being dismissed in the middle of the night. We have come up with a plan where we can house them in hotels for 3 nights until the other arrangements have been made for them. We're doing this in conjunction with the Department of Corrections.
Mr. President, Al Ortiz, Director, Essex County Correctional Facility. This will allow us the ability to, once the ICE determines that an individual will be released, we will get the notification, and if they don't have a place to go, we can then process them and give them at least 3 days of temporary housing as may be necessary, because other entities will be working with that individual from day one to get them to more permanent housing status. So I recommend the passage of this contract.
Mr. Paravecchio?
I do have a question for Ms. Burnett. This is for a 3-day temporary housing assistance, and you said until other arrangements could be made for them. Is that something that the former detainees are on their own to find out, or is the director was just talking about arrangements start to be worked out, or housing situation starts to be worked out from day one? Is there a next level after the 3 days are up?
If I may, I defer to Director Ortiz.
Okay, thank you.
I'll handle the first portion of it, Mr. President, through you. ICE does not release anybody who does not have any potential or some type of housing. With regards to what happens after the 3 days, we will work with them, but Ms. Burnett is more tuned to that particular aspect.
Mr. President, I could also address that through the stakeholder meetings. We had First Friends, and I believe ACLU, but certainly it was First Friends, asked for 3 days that would enable them to find more permanent housing for the detainees, and so this program is in response to that request. So to your question, Mr. Paravecchio, yes, there is ongoing work to find permanent housing while they're here for these 3 days.
So this bridges the gap between the finding of permanent and release?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Freeholder Siebold.
I have a question regarding the detainees. Don't many of them have families to go to when they're released?
Mr. President, through you, that's absolutely correct. This is the exception. Very rarely do we have an individual that does not have a place to go. This is for that individual, that once in a while individual that doesn't have a place to go is eligible to be released.
So, but most of them do have.
Absolutely.
Because we're on the eastern seaboard, there are families nearby.
Mr. President.
Thank you.
Freeholder Camaras.
Thank you. Can, it's not addressed in here, I know it's on the housing, but how does one get transported to the hotel? Is that something that the associated groups in the task force or the county responsible for?
Mr. President, through you, Al Ortiz, Director of the Correctional Facility. First Friends has committed to picking them up, but if we have to get them to that place, we will take them there.
Okay, so there will be, just for clarity, there will be no gap in transportation
Absolutely not.
and taking a detainee who's released into the hotels or the housing that's been set up. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Additional questions or comments, Freeholders?
I'm happy to move it, Mr. President.
I'll second
Moved
it.
by Freeholder Pomero, second by Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebold.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano, absent Freeholder Johnson, absent Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Mr. Jackson.
Director.
Okay, hi. Keisha P. Burnett, Acting Division Head for the Division of Family Assistance and Benefits, requesting an extension on the Janice Solutions contract. The reason and the purpose for the extension is I would like to complete the customer service training, training sessions that they have already begun, and also they are also assisting us and help facilitating our business process improvement meetings, which allows us to map out, document, and develop standard operating procedures, templates for administration to use in the future. It also helps us to identify the barriers that we need to process improvements for best practices and to replicate and establish future clear objectives for the constituents of Essex County.
Okay, Ms. Barlecchio?
No questions.
Mr. McInerney?
No questions.
Freeholder, Freeholder Siebold?
move it.
Moved by Freeholder Siebold,
Second.
second by Freeholder Graham. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson, absent. Freeholder Luciano, absent. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent. Freeholder Siebold.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Moving, Mr. Jackson.
Yes, Director Brown is here to address this item, Mr. President.
I did.
Okay, I'm sorry. I missed that. Missed that.
Good evening, Mr. President and
Ms. Brown.
freeholders. I'm Maurice Brown, Director for the Division of Community Action and Interim Director for Senior Services. As we look at Resolution number 9, it's really a compilation of what some of the what the state collected from some of the other areas, some of the other counties, extra money, and they gave us $28,000 to dole out to the agencies that we have to use by the end of the year, and that's $28,212, and we divided that amongst 4 agencies. 3 of them for nutrition, 1 of them for housing improvements.
Okay. Ms. Barlecchio?
No questions.
Ms. McInerney?
No questions.
Freeholders? Moved by Freeholder Mercado, second by Freeholder Graham. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebold.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent. Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano, absent. Freeholder Johnson, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, and good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Moving to resolutions number 10 through 11, which we can read into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, both these come from the Office of the Prosecutor. The item 10 is as an agreement, professional service agreement with a forensic nurse, Ms. Nancy Cox, 1-year agreement, an amount not to exceed $59,992. This is the same vendor as last year. It comes from 2 funding sources, approximately $31,000 from the operating budget and grant funding of approximately $29,000, and consists of breaking up weekday and weekend hours on call and regular service during a 48-hour period. It is, again, basically for a nurse examiner for sexual assault response. Item 11 is also is a budget insertion, the amount of $350,345. This is for the Intellectual Property Enforcement Program. This is for basically copyright and intellectual property infringement investigations. Most of this activity, enforcement activity, is connected with gangs and organized crime syndicates. This funding has been around since 2014. It covers salary and fringe benefits, plus some supplies. The salaries cover 1 assistant prosecutor and 1 detective full-time for 24 months, and no match is required.
Ms. Barlecchio?
No questions.
Ms. McInerney?
No questions.
Freeholders? Taking resolution 10 and 11.
I'll move, Mr. President. Second.
Moved by Freeholder Pomares, second by Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson, absent. Freeholder Luciano, absent. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent. Freeholder Siebold.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Moving to resolutions 12 and 13, which will be read into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, both of these are budget insertions for traffic enforcement activities, grants that we received from the Division of Highway Traffic Safety. The first one, $5,500 for Labor Day crackdown that was done on September 2nd. The second for a holiday crackdown that was done on August 16th at $5,500 as well. And they were both drunk driver checkpoints.
Mr. Parlecchio?
No questions.
Mr. McInerney?
No question.
Freeholders? Resolution 12 and 13. Have a mover?
Second.
I'm sorry, I apologize, who moved it? Freeholder Mercado, second by Freeholder Graham. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson, absent. Freeholder Luciano, absent. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Palmares.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent. Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Resolutions 14 and 15 have been withdrawn by the administration. Going to move to resolution number 44. Could you please read it, Madam Clerk?
Resolution 44, resolution supporting the advancement and passage of Assembly Bill A 4743, sponsored by Freeholder Gill, Freeholder Richardson, Freeholder Siebel, Freeholder Johnson, Freeholder Graham, Freeholder Mercado, and Freeholder Palmares.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This is a freeholder resolution supporting the advancement and passage of Assembly Bill A 4743. For those who are watching at home and are here, Assembly Bill A 4743 deals with driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants here in the state of New Jersey. Would any of the other sponsors like to make any comments about the resolution? Moved by Freeholder Siebel.
Second.
Second by Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent. Freeholder Palmares.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano, absent. Freeholder Johnson, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, and thank you to my fellow sponsors on that resolution. Moving back to resolution 16 through 43. Do I have a mover?
So moved.
Moved by Freeholder Mercado. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Freeholder Graham. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent. Freeholder Palmares.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano, absent. Freeholder Johnson, absent. Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Moving to report of board committees, legislative reports, written communication, unfinished business, new business, public comment. If there's any member of the public who would like to comment on any matter, please come to the microphone, state your name and affiliation for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Stacy Gregg, Rockaway. Looks like I'm the only one here. The public portion. There was overflow. You need to have a larger facility for all the meetings coming up because people will be coming back and opposing the detention of human beings that are considered illegal and classified. I'd like an answer. How many of the human beings that you're detaining for your blood money for the contract are actually white? What is the percentage? I'm sure it's very few. But I'd like to know that in the report, how many are white, they classify as white citizens? Because it needs to go on record that this is a freeholders board that likes to detain people that are non-white for profit, like a detention camp, similar to the ones that were run in Nazi Germany. Political prisoners kept there indefinitely without any way of getting out. There was a motion here that you took off of money tonight. I'd like to know that it wasn't the money that was set aside to help with the detainees the political prisoners to get help getting out, to get their paperwork done. It's like a misdemeanor. It's paperwork. People that came here on ships, people that came here, when my parents came here trying to get out of Poland, they came in legally, escaping tyranny and Hitler. They lost a lot of their family. Just like the people that are here in New Jersey at your detention center, which is called a concentration camp. If you look it up, that means a place where political prisoners are kept. And yes, I know it was done before Trump, but you pride yourselves on being Democrats, and what you are doing here is not something that the Democratic Party holds to be one of their truths. You're going to you gave out a lot of proclamations from the NAACP. A lot of people got awards on number 16 through 40. I was reading them, the commendations. It's wonderful. But you are part, the 5 of you, because you're the majority, 4 of you aren't even here tonight, because it's not important enough for them to show up. They're going to let you take over the concentration camp running this week and listen to the public, because they rock in their chairs and they look away and they have no answers. These are concentration camps. You are jailers. You have a responsibility to have an independent
30
board.
seconds.
The stench over there is stifling. You just made a contract to have more sewage put out into the air in your county. You passed a bill tonight. You are the jailers of non-white people, just like Trump wants done in this country. That's what you are. You are his Gestapo. You need
Time's
to
up.
close the camps.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Cowboy, home of Cowboy Ranch House. Newark, I wanted just to say, being around the park all these years and seeing how things are being duplicated and put together with the new systems of the field, the ball field, and how beautiful they would go get to work and do those things. But when it come down to the people coming down there to play, I said it's a shame that they don't have the facilities like they should have, like going to the bathrooms and going to have those outhouses that has broken seats. I've been checking on it for over a year. I can see why the ladies don't want to go in those bathrooms. Then they don't open up till 12 o'clock on Saturdays. When the kids, I see them, I'm down there at 8:30. The kids are waiting, wondering when they're going to open the place up. And the parents is trying to bring the kids there, and the kids are crying that they can't be in the playground. It's a shame that these type of things are being done, and the playgrounds is fixed up for the kids to be there, and that they don't have the facilities not open, and the people that takes care of the place doing a good job with taking, but it's a shame that they come there at 12 o'clock and close the place at 5 o'clock. I said they should have a little more time, or maybe see if some of the people that's supposed to be looking over those type of projects, see if they're there and see if they can make some changes and make a difference for the park. I appreciate being here and speaking on things that I see that over the years that aren't being taken care of, like up on the top of Elizabeth Avenue. The trails, and I get some beautiful trails there that was there at one time when I used to ride the horses and stuff through the park. But they're now all grown up and statues and everything. It looks sick. The park really looks sick. And it looks like it could be taken care of a little bit better. And I would appreciate it if somebody could overlook and see some of those things and bring it up. And then the trees that have fallen down, the limbs, that big heavy limbs that's fallen down right by the community center. It's been down for about 3 months, and it hasn't been cleaned
30
up.
seconds.
I would wonder why that the tree people, I haven't seen any tree people around here cleaning up the broken limbs and stuff, but it's going to happen when somebody gets hit in the head or something goes wrong. I'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt Dragon, West Orange. As of tonight, a petition asking for changes to the task force ordinance has over 550 signatures. They may not all be your constituents, but they are 550 concerned humans. That petition represents the agreed upon concerns and requests for changes of 14 local advocacy groups. We are all concerned, and we all want a discussion and a dialogue about this ordinance. These are Joe D's prisoners, the prison officer's prisoners, your prisoners, our prisoners, my prisoners. Since I haven't gotten responses from the administration to my questions, I can't ask constructive follow-up questions or push back on their responses. So instead, I'll read the petition requests into the record, requesting formal responses before final passage. Can 6A5 be changed to the task force must make reports available to the public online within 5 business days? If not, why not? Can 3A have a provision added which requires the county executive and board of chosen freeholders to accept recommendations from the community before any open spot on the task force is filled? Can this provision provide that if the county executive does not accept the community's recommendations when making an appointment, he must explain to the public his reasons for not doing so? If not, why not? Can Section 7 include a provision requiring that a meeting must be held whenever a majority of the members of the task force deem a meeting to be necessary? If not, why not? Can 3A2 and 3D be changed such that the task force's chair is elected by the task force from among its own members rather than appointed by the county executive? If not, why not? Can 5A be changed to systematic issues and individual incidents to make clear that the task force can review any incident at the ECCF, regardless of whether it has happened once or is an ongoing problem? If not, why not? Can 3D include a provision specifying that after the initial executive director completes his first 3-year term, no subsequent executive director should be appointed without the consent and approval of a majority of the task force members? If not, why not? Can the task force membership include an expert in legal issues facing immigrant detainees and a faith leader? If not, why not? Can 5C be changed to excluding any policies or procedures which could jeopardize the safety and security of the facility, removing unnecessary language regarding confidentiality covered elsewhere in the ordinance? If not, why not? Can a provision be added that requires the ECCF to provide all
30
inmates and
seconds.
detainees with a written description of the task force's purpose and powers and how the task force may be contacted in order to submit a complaint? If not, why not? Can 5A2 change to, as a general matter, the task force's review and examination shall be independent? Can the remainder of that provision be deleted? If not, why not? Can 5F specify that the task force may access video and audio recordings made by the ECCF among other records? If not, why not? Can a provision be added that explicitly permits the task force to administer surveys at the ECCF? If not, why not? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Madam Clerk, let the record indicate that there's no one wishing to speak at this time. Freeholder comments session. Freeholders, do you have any comments you would like to make? Just a couple of comments. Congratulations, Freeholder Graham, on your election yesterday.
Thank you.
And looking forward to continuing to serve with you. So,
Excited to still.
overwhelming victory. I also wanted to thank the staff for the veterans ceremony that we had before the meeting today. Thank you for all the efforts, Madam Clerk, on the ceremony, and to the staff for their hard work on that particular event that was held today. It's an excellent event, so thank you. Additional questions or comments? Do you have a motion to adjourn? Meeting adjourned.